All right. So I think we're live. How's everybody doing? If you haven't been to one of these that I've done before, it's been a little while since I've done one of these. But what I like to do is just hop on here for like, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour and just to make myself available to answer questions. If you have any writing questions, questions about self-publishing, questions about books, questions about my writing process, anything that you've wondered and like wanted to know more about like in the realm of writing, I just make myself available. I have like a cup of tea and just hang out for about an hour to 45 minutes and just answer questions. So if I'm not getting questions, I usually just like work on my book and hang out. And when I am getting questions, I talk about stuff. So if you have any questions at all about writing, I mean, as I just said, like about writing, self-publishing, your writing story, like process, like your any story ideas, if you want someone to bounce ideas off of, if you want like people to brainstorm with, I am here as a resource and I'm very excited to do this. So yeah, I see that we already have one question. Um, Hi, I'm so glad that you could join me. If you have any questions about writing, make sure to drop them in the comments and I will answer them. Um, and here's our first question. So, as I'm in the UK, this will be midnight for me. So, here's my question. Could you go through in detail your process of the love trials from beginning to end? What a fantastic question that I'm going to have so much fun answering. So, let me just like quickly gather my thoughts. I did make a video about the writing trials, writing, or sorry, the writing trials, the love trials writing process. I've been packing pre-orders all week. My brain is so fried. I did make a video about that a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's called like I finished a book, and like it's like me pointing to the book. That video walks you through the entire writing process from beginning to end, but quickly like or I mean, you asked for me to do it in detail, so I can go a little bit more in detail. But I got the idea for the love trials a year and a half ago. And I had like just this very, very little snippet of an idea, which was what if like writing a book about ghost hunters who hunt the ghosts of serial killers. And I thought that was just a really, really interesting concept. And originally I thought that I would write it as a YA book, but then there were just things that like made me really excited about that book that aged it up. So I kind of sat down I had just finished They Stay and I just published They Fall like last April, like around this time last year. And I just finished that book and there was another writing project that I was like planning on working on after like finished They Fall, and I was like planning on going back to that, but I was so excited about the idea and about the love trials that I was just like, I'm gonna write like just the first two chapters. And I just wrote the first two chapters just to like get it out of my system. And I was so overwhelmed with excitement that I just like took off running with it. So I wrote a very like messy first draft, but I just like flew all the way through that first draft. Like the story just completely poured out of me. I outlined that book in a day. I didn't use a plot grid, which is the first time that I had ever like not used a plot grid when outlining a book. It was just the whole thing came to me at once, and like this world came to me and all these characters came to me. And so I just kind of like hit the ground running with it. In 6 weeks, I had like a 200,000 word, like ridiculous mega draft that was extremely messy. But then I spent like the summer working through like my edits that I had like made to myself and just trying to get it like cut down enough because I was worried like about sending a 200,000 word book to beta readers because I was worried I wasn't going to get any beta readers if I was like, here you go, here's 200,000 messy words. So I managed to cut it down to I think like 153,000 words, which is still very long. But yeah, I spent the summer like self-editing it and like trying to make it as good as I could on my own. And then in October, I sent it to beta readers. Also over the summer, I started like making videos about it on TikTok and like started to try to like get the word out there a little bit about the book. And I was able to get a lot of beta reading interest from making TikTok videos, which was very exciting. So I had a big team of beta readers go through it in October, and I used Story Origin to manage that. So that was incredible because everybody could leave their comments on the book, but I could like they were all in the same place. So if everybody like highlighted it and like left a line comment, they all showed up in the same document. So I didn't have to like combine like a ton of people's different like Word documents. That ended up being really helpful. That confirmed a lot of the things that were working. It gave me a lot of feedback. Like it just kind of pushed the book into the direction, like I took it as far as I could on my own, but then I really needed like external feedback to have me like be able to figure out which direction to take it in after. I had uh I think it was like 450 people want to beta read it, but that number was a little bit too big for me to manage. So I capped it at 200 people, and I had a list of 200 people. But then when I sent it out, I had, I think, like 150 people start reading it and like download the book. And then I had between like roughly 75 finish it. So I had a lot of voices in there, but I also reached out to all the people who didn't finish it just to make sure, like, ask them reasons why, because I wanted to know, like, if they lost interest in the book, why, and like use that as like editing feedback, because that's really, really important to know if like people drop off. But life happens and stuff happens and all that jazz. So then after I did that, I I created an editing plan and I revised the book. So I got the book back like in mid-November. It was my deadline for like starting to really edit it. And mid-November up until like really I just was like hitting the ground running like from mid-November until I published it and like until I finished writing it and sent it to the printer like a month ago. So like mid-March is when I finished it because I had to send it to the printer and like finalize all the files for the pre-order. So, yeah, and then in between that time, I had one beta reader from that group of people that read it who was such a standout. Like, she was unbelievable. She was such a great beta reader. She was honestly the best, not just beta reader, but like best editor that I've ever worked with. And like, I really, really trusted her feedback. And it was so like detailed and clear. And like, I just absolutely loved her opinions and like the way that she thought about things. And she was kind enough to like work with me on it back and forth, like in between November when I got all of my beta reader feedback back. And when I was finished with the book, she read it two more times and like we went through it together and workshopped all of the little details and like ironed everything out and got really, really into the weeds of like every, like on a sentence level, how everything was fitting together. That was incredibly helpful. And then, yeah, that is, I think, the whole writing process. So I did like many drafts. I did a rough draft of like a really, really messy first. And then I'm kind of counting it as my second, like the one that I did over the summer, because I incorporated all my rewrites. And then I did a third kind of version of the book when I cut it down because I had to move things around and like try to trim it down. So I guess it's like kind of 2/3. And then after beta reading feedback, there is not a single chapter in the final version of the book that hasn't been completely rewritten since beta reading feedback. So I did a full new draft. The plot has stayed the same and like all the events are largely the same. I don't think I've really changed very much. I've just added scenes and like changed how things happen, but all of the beats are exactly the same from like my initial conception of the idea to the final product, which is amazing. And that's never happened to me before. But that was like a full new draft. And then, yeah, after that, it was just detail work and everything. But that is my entire process for writing the love trials. It was amazing. It was incredible. I also will say that I talk about this in the video that I filmed about it, but I've never felt like this about a book that I've written before. I absolutely love it. Like I've never, ever, ever been obsessed with a book. Like I'm obsessed with the love trials. So it was one of the best years of my life. And I had so much fun writing that. So yeah, it feels like it's just a crazy feeling to have that be done and like to feel this proud of it. Like I've never felt proud of a book. Like obviously I'm proud of the books that I've written, but I've never had the feeling of like I've been like bursting with pride when I think about this book. And I'm like, every time I talk about it, I'm like, here, like read it. And I'm like, I poured my heart and soul into it. And like, I stand behind it 100%. And I'm just so, so, so excited. So that's been a crazy, exciting feeling. And I am excited to write more books in the series because I just love those characters. And I now have a vision for what I want the series to look like. And so I have started drafting book 2 and I'm very excited about it. So sorry, I just totally like that was a long answer to that question. So but thank you so much for that question because that made me very happy. I love talking about this. All right, next question. Oh, and you pre-ordered the book. Thank you. That means that the book, if you didn't pre-order it today, because now we are sold out of paperbacks as of today, which is so cool. If you didn't pre-order it today, if you pre-ordered it like this morning or like last night, then your book is definitely on the way. The ones that came in this afternoon, I haven't packed yet, but I packed this morning and like I've been packing all weekend. And so like every single pre-order that I have gotten in is like now packed and on its way in the postage system. So that's very exciting. And thank you so much for pre-ordering it. I'm so grateful. It helps me so much. And I just like, I'm, as I said, so excited. I could talk about this book forever. Yeah, thank you. All right, next question. Is there anything I should do at the beginning of my writing career, making websites, registering names? Yeah, so there are a bunch of different things that you can do at the beginning of your writing career. What I did when I just started, I think having an author website is really important. It's not very hard to do. One of the first things I did when I created my author, like I mean, I'm not using like a pen name or anything, but like my author name, once I like created my author persona, I created a website. And that in today's digital age is it's important to have a website that's like good and conveys like who you are, what kind of books that you are, and what you do. My original author website was very simple. I've recently upgraded it. Like I upgraded mine last summer to be like way more like you go to my website and you're like, you know exactly what kind of books I'm writing. So I think being as clear about your branding as you can, like if you write like cozy romances, you want to make sure that like your website immediately screams that. I think that's really, really important from a branding perspective. I think it's still true that having a newsletter is one of the most important things to have as a writer, being able to communicate with your readers directly. I have just started selling direct through my website. Like this Love Trials pre-order was my first experience doing that, and I love it. And it's so cool to be able to have that kind of direct connection with my readers and like building a way to talk to your readers outside of Amazon and outside of all these other retailers is incredibly important because if for some reason like, you know, your Amazon account gets shut down or something happens, you are still able to like reach and talk to all of your readers and like still have a community. So I think having a website and having a mailing list are your two most important things to create. I think it's very helpful to start learning. Unfortunately, in today's day and age, it's very important to start like or to learn how to market yourself and market yourself on social media. So when I was just first starting out, like it took me a long time to get the confidence and also to kind of learn how to market myself on social media. Have always been incredibly daunted by social media. Social media really like I don't post anything personally to any of my own personal social medias. Like I will post 5 times a day to my author TikTok, but I will like, you know, maybe occasionally post a picture to my dog, like of my dog to my close friends on Instagram or something. Like I'm not a social media person, but understanding and like being social media literate is important because there are so many readers on TikTok, there's so many readers on Instagram, and it is a really powerful way to be able to reach people. So I would recommend learning as much as you can, like becoming a sponge and just absorbing information, going to conferences and meeting other authors that are starting out, learning from people who are doing what you want to be doing in 5 years. Like find those people and learn what they did, and then try to get advice from them. Like make sure that you're learning from the right people. Um, and I think, yeah, that would probably be website, um, mailing list, and learning as much as you can. One podcast that really helped me when I was starting out was Six Figure Authors. That is an incredible resource, and I highly, highly recommend that podcast. They have some really great information in there. All right. Wow. When I first started doing these live streams, I would hang out for like ages and nobody would ask me questions. This is so exciting. Thank you all so much for coming and for asking me these questions. All right. Hi, Claire. As a fellow writer, I wanted to ask if you've ever abandoned a book that you were working on, and if so, when did you know that it was time to put it aside and work on something else? This is such a good and important question. And the answer is yes. I have abandoned books that I have worked on. I have also held on to books that I should have abandoned much longer than I should have. So when I was in high school, I had just I published my first book when I was 16. And after that, I had this other idea. I wanted to write a like a YA contemporary. And I had this idea for these characters and for this world, and I just loved this story, but I couldn't figure out how to tell the story. Like I knew what was going to happen, but just no matter how many times I rewrote this book, the story still didn't fit together. And I like tried different openings, tried different structures. I tried it in third person, I tried it in first person, I tried it with flashbacks, I tried it all in one like continuous timeline. I introduced ghosts for a period, then I got rid of the ghosts, and then the ghosts came back. And like I was trying everything that I could to try to figure out how to tell the story in the most effective way. And even going so far as to like write this for my college thesis. I was like a senior in college, and I was like, you know what I'm going to do for my thesis is that I'm going to finish this book. I still wasn't happy with it at the end of my college thesis. Like I have no plans on publishing that book. I should have let that book go and moved on to something different. And I wrote that, and like I had my claws in that book, and I still like I haven't published it and I have no plans to publish it. And that's like many, many, many years that I spent writing that book. However, it did teach me a lot about like um that's a really awkward pause. I'm like, it did teach me a lot about like what actually did it teach me? No, but it taught me a lot about like learning the different types of POVs, because like I tried to tell the same story like from different points of view and like understanding what worked better, what didn't work. It made me really like dig into flashbacks and figure out like how to make flashbacks compelling and like why flashbacks weren't compelling, and trying to really dig into all of that stuff. I do wish that I had maybe done that over like different, like multiple writing projects instead of just holding on to the same one. But knowing when to let it go is a very, very personal thing. I don't really know how to answer this question because it really depends on the person, and it really depends on the topic, and like it really depends on the book. Um, I have a book that I wrote. Right between They Hunt and They Fall, I wrote another book that was like it's a YA ghost like mystery thriller about a ghost that like has to stop the serial killer that murdered her. And I have that book and I love that book. It's very quirky. It's like The Good Place but with murder. Like the ghost has to like atone for her misdeeds by like stopping the serial killer that who killed her and stuff. And so it's kind of like got a quirky like good place world building system. But yeah, I love it. I think it's great, but I kind of had to shelve that project, and I was going to go back to that project and finish it, but that's when I got the idea for the love trials, and I just decided to like full on run with that because I was so excited about it. So I'm sorry this isn't really a good answer to your question, but I think that it's important to keep in mind like where your excitement is, and like if you are really, really excited about a project, and if you are like coming alive when you're writing it and you're just like still really in love with it, and you can feel all of the like good feelings that writing this book is giving you, then I'd say stick with it. But if writing it is starting to like, if you've finished the draft, if you've edited it and something still feels wrong, and like you've done many drafts and it's been a long time, and there are other things that are just like really calling to you more, and like you're not feeling that excited feeling, maybe shelve it for a bit. I'm not saying like get rid of it completely, but like if it's a completed book that you can come back to at a later time, then maybe put it on the shelf and write something different. And then after you write something different, you can come back to it. Like that other book, it's called Dead Girls Can't Cry, my YA ghost book. I'm coming back to that book. I'm not like, I think that book is really quirky. I think it's really fun. It's not at a place where I can just pull it off the shelf and like publish it right away. Like it's going to take a little bit more work, but it's not something that is going to stay on my shelf forever. The one that I agonized over in high school is probably going to stay on my shelf forever. So I don't know. This is a very personal decision. I hope that that maybe helps a little, but there's no like black and white clearly delineated like this is what you do in this particular instance. But I'm a big advocate for listening to your heart and listening to what makes you the most excited. I'm really glad that I didn't go back to finishing Dead Girls Can't Cry and like punted the love trials. I'm really glad that I just like ran and followed the passion, because now it led me here. All right. Let's see. Oh, we got some more questions. Oh my gosh, we have so many questions. I've got to stop being so long-winded. All right. If I want to start a series, can I use different characters? Yes. You can. There are series that use tons of different POV characters, like the Zodiac Academy has tons of different POV characters, and like almost every chapter is like switching and being told in a different character's POV. There are romance series that like the first book will be from the POV of one couple, and then the next book will be just like based off of another couple. So absolutely, there are a ton of different ways that you can utilize different characters in series arcs. What do you do when you're not in the mood to write or when you feel no inspiration strikes you to get you to just sit and write? My joke on this channel is that I never have a good answer to this. Literally, my best advice to you is just sit your butt in the chair and write the book. Like, I made a video on the channel. It was one of my first ones that I made like 6 years ago. Like, I was tiny in this video. Like, my fiance always quotes this to me because he just like thinks it's really funny that this was like one of my first videos. But I'm like giving people advice on how to write a second draft, and I like have really intense eye contact in the camera, and I was like, if you don't want to write today, too bad. And like I like point in the camera and say too bad. And it's kind of true. Like, even on the days where I don't feel like I want to write, I just sit in the like in front of my computer and I open my Word document and I make myself write anyway. I might not have the bar raised really high for myself that day. Like if I'm really exhausted and I just really don't want to do anything, then I might like just open it and like putz around in it a little bit and like take one step forward. Like it doesn't have to be like a giant leap forward, but just like 100 words, 50 words. Like I add something to my outline. I think about it. I give myself something to think about. So it's kind of noodling in my head for the day. But I just always like to take one step forward. So I never wait for inspiration. I never wait for being in the mood to write. I just write and then the inspiration comes and like I enjoy it sometimes. Like a lot of times I am in the mood to write just because I love it. It's like my favorite thing to do in the world. But even when I'm not, like sometimes the act of just writing, like I will get motivated as I'm actually working. So yeah, I have no hacks for this one either. You just have to do it. Um, how do you start an email list when I don't know a ton of people? I know that this can definitely be intimidating, but the best way to really just start an email list is to create an email list. And then what I like to do is, or what I recommend doing and what I did is to have some sort of freebie. So, like, people call it a reader magnet. And it's either like a free short story, a free book, like something, a free book that you've written. But that was kind of a high bar for me when I was just starting out. I think I gave away the book that I wrote in high school for like a hot second, and I was like, I don't know if I want to give this away because I don't want people to like associate that with me now. Um, so I would get like write a short story, write like, the first 5 chapters of your novel, something like that, and give that away for free. So you say that like if you sign up for my mailing list, you can have this XYZ thing. And then there are a bunch of places where you can do newsletter swaps. So you can like I don't know all of the places off the top of my head because I haven't ever actually really done them, but there are places where you can connect with other authors in your genre and say like, I will promote you on my mailing list if you like, send this out to your mailing list and like say that they can get this freebie when they subscribe to my mailing list. And that's something a lot of authors do to like start getting some more people onto their mailing list. What I did, kind of like little marketing hack that I decided to experiment with when I was first starting my mailing list was that I bought a bunch of YA thriller books like on Amazon or I think at Barnes and Noble, and I ran a giveaway. And I was like, in order for you to enter the giveaway, you need to subscribe to my mailing list. So I was like, all right, the people that are going to be entering this giveaway are already going to like the kind of books that I'm writing. And then I just like, I mean, it was a little expensive because like I paid for the books at Barnes and Noble, and then I like ran a couple little like Facebook ads, not like spending a lot of money on it, but just like a little bit to try to like get people out there, and almost used that as a reader magnet. So I was expecting a lot more people to drop out of my mailing list from that, but a surprising number of them stayed on, and that was able to grow my mailing list pretty quickly, just right at the beginning. So that was something that really helped. And then just starting to publish as fast as I could. And as soon as I had books out there, that naturally brought people onto my mailing list. So it's always like rough when you're first getting started, but that is how I first got started out building my mailing list. All right. Hi, Claire. I was curious about how you interact with people on social media, whether that's marketing your future. Oh, sorry, that was just me shifting my chair. Whether that's marketing your future debut, would you have ideas or suggestions even if you're in the drafting process? Oh, yeah. So social media has been very difficult for me. Like, that's something that I've had to work really, 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 really hard at learning. That's taken a lot of grit and persistence on my part because it just does not come naturally to me. But what I try and correct me like if I'm not actually answering your question, but I typically try to be like really like honest on social media and like just be really, really authentic. And I found that like quantity has been better than quality. So not obsessing over really hard videos to make. The simpler videos that take the shorter amount of time to create usually do better for me. I don't ever share anything really about my personal life just because it doesn't come naturally to me. I don't want to like but I talk a lot about the books. And I'm very, very active on social media now, which is also something that, like, when I first started posting, it was a lot. It was exhausting for me to do it. Like, I physically could not sustain Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and all of that stuff. Like, I couldn't do it. Now I can, and I think it's just because I've been doing it for a long time that it comes more naturally to me and it feels more comfortable. So I would say, like, show up as much as you can, engage with people and answer comments and like be as present as you possibly can, be as authentic as you possibly can, be as generous as you possibly can with your time and like with your care. Like when people comment, like really like as much as you can, because eventually, like, you want to be writing the book. You can't spend all your day on social media, but the more that you can like engage with people and like kind of create personal connections with people, the better. I think that something that has worked well for me is even before I was done with the book, I was making videos like sharing scenes and snippets and things like that on social media and different like scene concepts. So I'd be like, when like I'd film my face like reading another book and like the text on the screen would be, I mean, I don't know. I'm like trying to think of the love trials hooks that I would use, but I was like, when you get kidnapped by a serial killer and like you're he's known for taking couples and making them play games like to break their love, but you're really confused because there's nobody out there who you love. And then like the text would switch and it would be like, but then you turn around and see it's your worst enemy tied up across from you. Like I'd make videos like that. I wasn't done writing the book, but then I would see which videos like did the best. And then I would be like, oh, okay, so these scenes are like these elements of the book are the things that people are connecting with the most. And then those were like scenes that I knew were really important to keep in the book. So even if you're not done writing the book, like making videos, sharing excerpts, like I was sharing scenes and excerpts that actually didn't even end up in the final book. Like I would just kind of make scenes about them all or like videos about them all. So I think you absolutely can make videos while you're in the drafting process. I think sharing as much as you can about like what you're doing and like updating people as much as you can is great. And just, yeah, showing up and being really authentic and really present. But if you're like me, just make sure that you protect yourself and don't show up too much because otherwise it can really, really be a drain on like your energy levels and creativity. So I have found though that the more you do it, the more used to it you get. Oh, thank you so much for pre-ordering the ebook version. That is so kind of you, and I'm so, so, so excited to share it with you. I'm working right now on finalizing the bonus content and getting all of that set up for sending out next week. I can't believe that the book comes out a week from tomorrow. That's crazy. I'm so, so, so excited. All right. Are you interested in writing a high fantasy or sci-fi novel in the future? Nope. Sorry. You wouldn't want to read the high fantasy or sci-fi that I have to write. I don't read that genre. I don't like personally, I'm not really into that genre, so I'm not the best person to tackle those. But I definitely go recommend reading people who are extremely, extremely passionate about those. All right, let's see. What is your opinion? Oh, hi. What is your opinion of prologues in general? I'm working on a fantasy novel and I'm stuck between two prologues, and now I'm debating on even having one. Your thoughts? I have a prologue in the love trials. And the reason that I used like people are really divided on prologues. The reason that I decided to include a prologue in the love trials is because my book is very inspired by like Criminal Minds, and I like how in Criminal Minds you get like a cold open of like the serial killer that they're gonna hunt. So I thought like I wanted to use my prologue just as that, like just like a snippet to set the tone, to like foreshadow the serial killer that they are going to hunt. And so I wrote like it was only 1,000 words. Like it was pretty short. I think in my first draft it was 500 words. Like it was a very, very short, just literally meant to set the stage and like set the scene. Um, and that is the purpose that it served. I don't like, personally as a reader, I really don't like very long-winded, drawn-out prologues that kind of either start like in the middle of a battle or like in the middle of like a really high stakes event that I'm not invested in yet. If I'm gonna read a prologue that's gonna like set the stone or sorry, set the stage and like tone of the book, I want it to be really snappy, really short. Otherwise, it's not gonna hold my attention. So anything that's like very long and drawn out, I am personally not a fan of as a reader. I think that unless you have a very specific reason why you need that prologue, like the reason that I needed the prologue in the Love Trials was because the main character goes through a couple like it's about this serial killer that takes couples and makes them play deadly games, but it's also about a team of ghost hunters who hunt the ghosts of serial killers. And then, like, that killer that is making the couple play the games is actually like a dead serial killer that's like possessing someone. So the team of ghost hunters is the one that investigates them. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but I wanted to right out of the gate be like, yeah, this is inspired by Saw. We're going to get here. But for right now, we have to like go through this like backstory of like all the ghost hunting stuff. But then this is still happening and this still exists. Because if I just started with ghost hunting, people that like saw me marketing it as Saw would be like, what is this? This is like just ghost hunting stuff. So I think that you need to have a very specific reason. And for prologues, keep them very short, is my personal opinion. um, let me see. Will you please do more live chats? I can try. I'm happy to work these into my schedule. To be completely honest, the reason that I'm doing this today is because I do a video every Monday, and I've been packing pre-orders literally all week, and I didn't have time to sit down and film, and so I was like, this will be fun. I'll get to show up live and actually talk to people. But yes, I can absolutely start doing more live chats. Um, let me see. Would you be able to direct us towards these groups? I think these are talking about, I'm not sure if you're talking about newsletter swap groups, but I honestly don't really know because I'm not a part of them. I've never done a newsletter swap before. I can try to look into resources and I can try to put them in a comment on this video after we get done here. So I'll just make a note to myself to go and do that after we get done. Um, Thank you so much for that very generous gift. That's very, very kind of you. Um, I'm so glad that the Scrivener video was helpful to you. And yeah, then thank you so much for coming here and for being a part of this community. I swear I'm so sorry. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't want people to think I'm like farting on this live stream. I just keep shifting in my chair and it makes a really loud noise. Thank you so much for coming to this live stream. And yeah, and for your gift. All right, another question. How much world building do you do for your novels, and how do you divide the time when to write the story and when to world build? Oh, okay, I love this question. I'm not a huge building person. I like world building for the vibes. So I world build around story. The Love Trials is probably the most intricate world that I've ever built. I'm really, really proud of it. And I'm really excited about it because all my early reviews are like pointing out like the detail, like they're saying that they like the detail and all the world building and stuff. So it's, make me feel really good about myself. But I always like to world build around story. So I know that there are a lot, especially high fantasy writers, that like to write, like create the world and then create the story inside the world. But for me, I do the opposite. So when I'm writing a first draft, I usually don't know that much about the world, but I just keep asking myself, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if like this happened? And then I have absolutely no idea how that would happen, but now it's going to happen. And I'm just going to pretend that it already happens and then write the plot in that direction. And then I will go back in time, figure out how to make it happen in that way when I'm actually revising. So I have this whole sequence in the Love Trials. This is like the first example that comes to mind because it was exactly this. I had absolutely no idea how the ghost world building would really work. I just wanted to figure out like what the story would be. And I had these two characters. Like there's also a lot of romance that comes into this story. Like romance is a big part of it, and they were on a ghost hunt gone wrong, and then they like kind of get contaminated with like ectoplasm. It's like the kind of ghost goo in the world. And I was like writing and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if like somehow like the ectoplasm like came in and affected your emotions? And I'd be like, that would like make everybody's emotions really heightened, and then it would make it like this extra dramatic when they had all of these like romantic entanglements right after this thing. So I just was like, all right, well, now in the world, ectoplasm is going to amplify emotions. And then I just like wrote on as if it did that. And then when I was editing, I had to go back in time and figure out like why and how. So I usually do it all in tandem. Like world building is part of the story. I don't usually like I when I run into a question like that. So if I was writing my second draft and I get to that point and I'm like, all right, now I have to figure this out. Why does ectoplasm amplify emotions? And then I would sit down and I'd figure that out before I go and edit that scene. So they all happen at the same time for me. Um, there's so many really, really awesome questions. Let me see. Sorry, I'm reading all your questions. Um, For authors that are just starting their self-publishing journey, what is the single best piece of advice that you can give us? I actually just made a video sharing my pieces of advice, like my favorite pieces of advice for beginner writers a couple weeks ago. But by far, the biggest piece of advice and like the most important one that has served me the best is just be persistent. Writing is hard, self-publishing is hard, creating art and releasing it into the world is hard. The creative industry is just so saturated with so many different like voices and stories and books, and there are millions of books being published all the time. And so it's really hard to like go out and like create a name for yourself when it's just you doing it. Like, it's only me and my business. Like I create like I have no employees, it's just me. I'm the one that writes the books, and then I market the books, and then I'm here on YouTube, and then I'm in my garage packing the books, and I'm driving them to the post office, and I'm making videos about it, and like, and I'm the one collecting the orders, and I'm the one that like gives refunds if people cancel. Like it's just me that does all this stuff. And it is very overwhelming and kind of daunting, like to be the person that does all of these things. And if, it can take a little while for your books like to find any kind of success. Like I am very, very, very over the moon grateful to everybody who's pre-ordered a copy of the Love Trials. And it like I've been publishing books for a long time, and I've never sold books like I've been selling the Love Trials. And like it's an incredible feeling to like to be selling books and to have like all of these pre-orders. Like I had this giant pile of pre-orders that I'd packaged, and I was like sitting next to them, and I like burst into tears looking at them because I was like, I've been working at this for such a long time, and I've never sold books like this before, and it's just so exciting. And there are periods where like it can feel impossible, like if nobody's buying your book, and nobody wants to subscribe to your mailing list, and you get like 3 likes on Instagram, and nobody, like sometimes it can feel like you're out here like putting all of your work and time and effort and energy into it, like in a direction, and nothing's really happening, and that can feel kind of lonely because you're just doing this by yourself. But it's so important to be persistent and just to keep applying yourself and pushing your like and just throwing yourself in the direction that you want to go, and just be a little bit insane and like a little bit crazy. And like if you're in it's like I in the video I made a couple weeks ago, I used the analogy of like a if there's a locked door, and like you walk over to the door and you try the handle and you find that it's locked, and you're like, oh, I guess it's locked. And so then you just walk away from the door. The person who does that is not going to have as high of a chance of getting through the door as the person who like tries the doorknob, sees it's locked, and then repeatedly throws their body against the door. Eventually that door will come down because you're just being persistent and obsessive and a little bit insane. And that is probably the best piece of advice that I can give you, is just be persistent and obsessive and passionate and a little bit insane. And if you're like really, really persistent, eventually things are going to pay off and things are going to happen. So yeah, that's my best piece of advice. But I have a bunch of other ones in the video that I made. All right, let me see. Um, there are so many amazing questions. This is so exciting. All right, let's see. How do you know when you feel ready to publish a novel? I think this is another one that's like a little bit personal. I think that for me, I have always just felt like when I feel that I've made something as good as I can make it, when I'm like, I stand behind this, this is the absolute best that I can do. And I've gotten other people's feedback, I've incorporated that feedback. I'm really proud of it. I really like this story, and I've given it 100% of my effort. Then I release it into the world. And then I move on to the next thing, because I'm such a perfectionist that if I wait for things to be perfect, they're never going to be perfect. There are already, like things that I've been, thinking about since I've finished the love trials. I'm like, oh, maybe I could have like added that scene, or I wonder what would happen if I took that scene a little bit farther, or like, little tweaks and things. But if I never let anything go, then I wouldn't be able to move on to the next thing. And what has made me improve as a writer is writing the next project. The next project is going to teach you more always than all right, forget always. I hate the word always. I never use always in writing tips because it's really not true. There's always exceptions to rules and stuff. So forget I just said always. If this were in a video I could edit, I would cut that out. But um shoot, I just lost. Oh, the next book that you're going to write is most of the time going to teach you more than going back and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting the book that you've already written. So like make it the absolute best that you can make it, then publish it, and then move on to the next thing. And keep your eye on the horizon and always try to make the next book that you write better than the one that you just published. At least that's the mindset that I have, and that's been working well for me so far. All right, let's see. Did you ever struggle with writing dialogue, or was that something you felt was one of your strengths from an early stage in your career? I'll admit that good dialogue is my biggest struggle. I um, I don't think I've ever really struggled. I haven't struggled with authentic dialogue in a way that I can look back and be like, yes, that was one of my main struggles, because my characters are probably the thing that come most naturally to me while writing. I will be the first to tell you that I am not a very naturally talented writer. Like I have been told many times throughout my life and like throughout my childhood and throughout my college years that my prose was nothing to write home about, that I wrote like an amateur fan fiction writer, that like I had no voice, and that like my prose was not very fancy, but like my characters felt real. And so through a lot of hard work and sheer effort and like determination and persistence, I've learned how to improve that prose. But my characters, it's still something to this day. Like if people ask me how I create my characters, I honestly can't tell you. I don't know. Like I think about them, and then all of a sudden they appear, and then they feel really real to me. And so I think because dialogue and character come hand in hand a lot of the time, my dialogue has always kind of come naturally, just because the characters are so real, I can really hear them speaking, and I can feel like what their dynamics would be, and the words just pour out of me. So I'm sorry, I don't really have it's like that's why I haven't really made any videos on the channel at all about character storytelling, because I honestly genuinely have no idea how to put it into a process. It's not something that like comes from here. It's like something I do from here, and like it comes out of my heart and like my feelings center. It's like it's not something that's like a thinking process. So I'm working on it though. I was just talking to my parents about this last night actually, because they were telling me I should try to do some more character videos, but I still don't know how I'm gonna do them. Um, let's see. Um, could a choose your own ending book make it today in adult fiction? I honestly have no idea. I'm sorry. I have never really read one of those, and I have no understanding of what the market is like for them. How do I write longer chapters? Man. My problem, I honestly don't know. Can you tell me how to write shorter chapters? I can't write a chapter that's under like 5,000 words in an early draft. All of my chapters are so long. This is the year that I'm trying to teach myself how to write shorter drafts, but it's not going very well so far. I'm still writing really long drafts. I always I put way more information than is needed into a chapter, at least in the early stages, because I'm like writing more as I figure out stuff, and then I will trim them down to some extent when I publish the book. Like Love Trials was long. I published it at 179,000 words, and my first draft was 200. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a ton of tips. I did make a video actually about this, like where I really, really sat down to try to think about it. Um, like how, like what tips for underwriters, like how to beef things up. So I don't fully remember what I said in that video, but I highly recommend going and check it out, because I'm sure I will have better advice for you in that than I would right now. What's your least favorite part of revising an early draft? That's a really good question. I love the writing process and I love the revising process, and I love the editing process. Like, I had so much freaking fun revising the love trials with that one beta reader that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, because just digging into the details and having someone who is so incredibly like detail oriented, like you can have all these conversations literally about like every single little tiny micro detail that goes into a story is so much fun. But that's not something that I'm doing like when I'm revising an early draft. I think it Sorry, I gotta think about this one for a second. I kinda enjoy all of it. I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. I know that's an annoying answer. I just love writing, man. Writing is the best. Writing is so fun. I think that maybe it's like, oh, you know what it is? It's when my draft is really long and I have to figure out what I'm gonna cut out of it to make it shorter. That was horrible. When I was trying to figure out how to cut my really, really long draft into a version that I could send to beta readers, because I didn't want to send them like a really, really ridiculously long draft. So I when I did my 200,000 word draft, then I did my own rewrites to it. I bumped it up to 240,000 words and then I cut it to 150. So I cut like almost 90,000 words out of that book before sending it to beta readers. And that was just horrible because I had to like really think about what I didn't want to have in the book anymore. And I was just like slashing and cutting, and I don't like doing that. So yeah, that was my least favorite. Um, let's see. Um, How has your approach to writing individual scenes and their structure changed over the years as you get more comfortable with writing? Do you still plot out the scene structure first, or do you do it later? I think that now that I've written more books, I think a lot of the scene structure and just general like a lot of it has become internalized. So I understand like just internally what a scene is supposed to feel like. And like I used to plot out my scenes. So like I all scenes kind of have to act on a story arc. So you have like a little inciting incident, and then you have rising action, then you have a climax, and then you have a resolution. And then you have like reversals kind of in the scene. So like reversals of expectation. And I don't plot those out on a scene level anymore. Like I kind of have ideas of like what general scenes have to happen, but I'll write in my outline like 2 sentence little summaries. And then as I'm writing the scene, I will go more into the details and I'll kind of figure out maybe a rough structure of the scene before I write it. But I'll do that like right before I write the scene. So I'll think about what has to happen, think about how like my characters are going to get from point A to point B, think about like what's most exciting to me, like what feels most exciting from a story perspective, like what I want the characters to do, and then I'll just write that. So I typically like to kind of create little notes to myself right at the top of my document and then just kind of roughly sketch in a little bit of a structure, and then I write the scene. But I think that over the years, as I've gotten more comfortable with writing, it's just things have become more internalized. Like I have a better sense for pacing. I have a better sense for how scenes are supposed to unfold. And I think that that's really only something that you get from experience. Like, I don't know. I was just talking to my fiance about this the other day too, because we were talking about making videos on YouTube, and I was telling him that there are a lot of videos that people are asking me to make, but now like a lot of times my answers to the questions are just like, I don't know, I just do it, and I don't necessarily stop to think about how I do it. And he was just telling me that that's something that comes with experience, because like he does that in his job too, and like he just has a sense for stuff. So I think like as you do it more and as you get more experience, things like start to feel more natural. But the only way to get there is like by doing it and having experience, but also like reflecting on the things that you do. That's why I'm such a big advocate for like plotting, and even if you're not a plotter, like plotting after the fact, like just being thoughtful and analyzing everything that you've done with your writing, and like analyze your plot, analyze like if you pantsed a whole book, look at that book, write a reverse outline, like write everything that happened, and then step back from it and figure out how you could tighten up that plot. Because like actually going through those like kind of cerebral exercises will eventually create those instincts in you down the road. All right, let's see. Um, that pitch sounds like you turned Saw into a rom-com. I love that. Kind of did. There's like this love trial, like the love trials is like a combo of like all my favorite things. It's got like it's like enemies to lovers meets Saw, but then it's also like meets Supernatural, and also like drawing inspiration from like Lockwood and Co. and the Naturals and like all these like stories that I love. But lots and lots of Criminal Minds and Saw and Enemies to Lovers and lots of romance. And yeah, it's my favorite thing ever. I friggin' love that book. Um, oh, thank you so much for pre-ordering a copy of the Love Trials. I'm so excited that it's getting there soon. Can I talk about how I fulfill physical orders? Do you store them in your house, a warehouse? Yes, I absolutely can. So a couple minutes ago, I was just talking about how like I do everything in my business. Just I wear all of the hats in this business, and so it is just me fulfilling all those physical orders. So I have made like a post on Instagram, I think, sharing some like photos and things from like this past week. But from like Wednesday till now, I like packed and fulfilled all of the physical orders, and like I drove them to the post office, and like I just like loaded them up into carts and like everything, and just it's all me. So I ordered all the books to my house, and I created like a little signing station, or like a station where I could unpack them. Like I ordered them all to my house, and I ordered a lot of them. I also did a big experiment because I kind of pitted a bunch of printers because I had never really used Book Vault ever before. This was my first experience ever with Book Vault. It was my first experience with Barnes& and Noble Press at this scale. I have used Barnes& and Noble Press before, but I never used them to print this many books. And I also used Ingram Spark, and I used all three of those printers for this print run. And I um, ordered more than I needed just in case I ran into issues, because if there were ones that were misprinted, if ones arrived damaged, I wanted to make sure that I had enough to like fulfill all of my orders. So I ordered like 250 paperbacks. I ordered 200 hardcovers from Book Vault, and I think like 220 maybe hardcovers from Ingram. And I'm so glad that I ordered all those books, because I'm going to make a big video going into all the details of all this. But I think like 45 of those paperbacks, 45 out of 250, arrived damaged, either with print errors or like actual printing errors or shipping errors. Like they were like dented really bad. I took pictures of them all this morning. All the like scratch and dent copies, like the corners were all dented, and like just, they had a lot of issues, or like they would be like all scratched and like, you know, had problems. So 45 out of those 250 of the paperbacks were kind of a bust. I'm still going to sell them, but I'm going to sell them like at a discounted rate and do like scratch and dent copies. And I'm right now going back and forth to see if I can get any refunds for like serious print errors, because I should, because like a lot of these like are actual issues. Like there were pages that were falling out of some of them, and then like also the shipping errors. Like I really really hope that they take responsibility for the shipping errors, because some of these companies will just throw the paperbacks in a box and they just ship them right to you, and they don't package them well, and so then they arrive dented. But then that's not the person who bought the book's fault, that's like the company's fault. I'm still, this is my first time figuring all this out, so this is a big learning experience for me. Book Vault arrived like I think I only had issues with like 8 or 10 out of my 200 that were actual like printing issues, like just like the front pages were like printed at an angle and were crooked, so they were kind of falling out of the book. But every other one like arrived in pristine condition. And then Ingram Spark, I don't even want to get started on. Like it looked like most of them like were probably like kicked all the way from Tennessee to my house. Like they were just beat to crap and like just absolutely horrible, and like bad printing, like tons and tons of errors. And like I'm trying to figure out what to do about that, because I have like 200 of those books and they are not in good condition. So I'm very very glad that I got that many, because I have enough to fulfill all of my orders. I just sold out of my paperbacks this morning, which is really good, all the ones that I actually can sell. And I have all of the hardcovers that like are all beautiful pristine condition, like from Book Vault, and that's amazing. So I got like 600 plus of these books delivered to my house, and I had to go through all of them, and I had to make sure like do a quality check on all of them, and I just like piled them all up in places. And then I bought all of my packing materials. I bought like my little foldable mailers and a bunch of tape and a bunch of bubble wrap and poly mailers and all sorts of that kind of things. A bunch of Sharpies. My mom bought me a label printer because I thought that I was going to be able to print them out on the printer and like stick them, like tape them to everything. And she said that that's going to take too much time. And thank goodness she did, because she saved my booty, because that label printer really like really saved me so much time this week. Without that label printer, it would have been absolutely horrible and so hard to fulfill. And then I packed all the orders myself. I recruited my friends and I recruited my dad, and I had my friends like spend some afternoons with me, like just we'd like blast music and package orders, and I'd sign them, and then they would like put them in the mailers and stuff, and I'd print the labels, and we kind of got a bit of a groove going. But yeah, That's what we've been doing. Every single order of the book that comes through my website is packed by me. And every time I get one, I get a little email, like, and the email is in all caps, says like, "Nice, you got an order." And I'm like, "Nice, I got an order." And I get really excited. So no, it's literally just all me, out of my garage. So I'm still trying to figure out, like, I'm opening a TikTok shop, next week, right after the book release, where I'm going to sell the book on TikTok Shop, and I'm going to fulfill all of those orders myself. And I want to be able to sell direct because I can make a lot more money if people buy the book directly from me than, like, I only make, I don't know, like maybe $3 a book when people buy it on Amazon. But if I can get my, like, if I can print the paperbacks, for like, if I can order them in bulk, and I can have, if I'm moving enough copies of the book that I can order them in bulk, then that gets the printing costs down for me, and then I can sell them at, like, roughly like a normal price, but then I make a much bigger margin. It's a lot more work for me, so I'm trying to figure out like the balance between all these things. But from all of the conferences that I've been going to and all the things I've been learning online, it seems to be like kind of where it's at right now for, like, indie authors. Like, if you can create your own store and sell direct to consumer, you're in a much better place because you can also then find, like, you have the email addresses of everyone who's bought from your store, and so like you actually have a way to contact them and, like, update them about your order, and then you can, or about their order, and you can also put in, like, you can sign them and you can put in goodies, and like there are a lot more things that I can do with my direct store. Like, I want to be able to offer special editions with foiling, and I won't be able to do that through Amazon. So this is all a brand new learning experience for me, and I'm still learning how to do it. This has been my first experience with direct sales, but I've been, like, just, my heart has been overflowing with gratitude for everybody who's been making this dream come true for me. Because yeah, every time I was looking at that pile, I was just like bursting into tears. I was just so overwhelmed and so grateful and so excited. So yeah, it's a big freaking deal. Um, but no warehouse. I'm not moving enough for that. But there are tons of authors, like, who've spoken at these conferences that, like, rent out warehouse spaces and, like, have full staffs and people like that that, pack orders for them. But I'm too small for that. Um, all right. Oh my gosh, these are all such good questions. Um, Question: when you're about to start writing your novel, when do you start envisioning your ending? From the very start, when creating the concept, or in the middle of the writing process? For me, it's from the very start. I know how the book's going to end when I start writing it, and I know what my major plot twists are when I start writing it. Um, yeah. I think it used to be a little different depending on the project, but I just started working on book 2 of The Love Trials, and I already know my major plot twists, and I know how that's gonna end. At least I have a vision for, like, the things that are exciting to me and, like, what I think would be cool for the plot twist, and we'll see if I discover something better on my way, but I definitely know where I'm going and, like, what direction I'm headed in. Alright. Um How long does it take for you to finish a novel? It took me 3 years for my first book. Um, for my first book, I wrote that I started writing my first book when I was, I think, 13, and I published it right before I turned 16, so it took me a while. Then the second book I wrote after that, I wrote, like, all through high school, and I didn't self-publish that, and I was, like, still working on it in college. I started writing They Stay in college, and I published that, like, 3 years later. But once I had graduated from college and I was, like, really, really focused on doing this, between, like, I did They Whisper in about, like, 6 to 9 months, the sequel to They Stay, and after that, it was, like, probably one every, like, 9-ish months, except for the gap between They Hunt and They Fall. The last book in the series was a year, just a little over a year, because I was agonizing over the ending, and I just wanted to make sure I got the ending exactly right, and I also wrote another book in that time. The Love Trials took me a full year. I started writing that, like, before this time last year, like, in March of last year. And I don't know how long the sequel's gonna be. I keep thinking, like, "Oh, maybe now that I've written a couple books and I have them under my belt, it'll go faster," but I don't know. I I'm anticipating that it will still be a long process. I am just from a mental like planning perspective, I'm kind of treating books 2 and 3 of the Love Trials like as one, so I can like draft them all at the same time and like try to see if that speeds up my process at all, and then kind of split like treating them as two separate arcs, but like treating the process like I write them at the same time. So I don't know. I'm experimenting with it because I'm trying to see if there's any way that I can like maybe push like move it a little bit faster, but I'm comfortably at about one per year. But also the Love Trials is like 610, 620 pages. So it's a long book. So I'm thinking one with shorter text, maybe I'll be able to do faster. But yeah, everybody writes at their own speed. And there are people that write a book a month and like can publish a book every 3 months. And I've never been able to do that. So everyone has their own unique writing pace. How do you go about picking what point of view to write your story in? Um, that's a good question. I think that I just usually choose the main character and I write in their point of view. I write in first person present tense. So I really like reading books that are single POV or maybe double POV, but like I don't love it when there are a ton of point of view characters. And they say I had four main point of view characters. And in Love Trials, it's just told from the point of view of one character, and then one character at the end gets like one POV chapter. So I think I might expand that in later books in the series because I'm also seeing some readers like are calling for like, oh, I would love it if like part of this was dual point of view or we got to see more of the like love interest point of view. But there's a very specific reason why I kept this all in single point of view because there are lots of major character driven plot twists in the Love Trials, and I didn't want to give any of those away. I wanted like people to discover them with the main character. So it also depends like what reader experience you want. Like in the Love Trials, I wanted people like it's about this like team of ghost hunters in this pre-established world of people that are already like really doing this thing, and I wanted to tell it from the POV of a girl that's just entering that world so that like the reader also is just entering that world and then everybody can explain everything that's happening to that newbie. So instead of jumping into the POV of someone who's like really experienced, it can be a strategic decision to like choose a character that's on the outside of something so that they can enter the world with the characters or like with the reader. Yeah. Gonna have a sip of water here. Been talking for an hour. Of course it's empty. Oh well. Um, let's see. I don't want to skip over anybody's questions. I am probably going to have to wrap this up fairly soon just because otherwise I'm going to lose my voice. Um, let's see. When you want to start writing a novel, is it generally a good idea to determine from the get-go that you want your novel to be a 3, 4, or 5 book series, or just go with the flow? I don't really necessarily know what the best strategy is here. I think that can you'd be surprised how well you can improvise when you're already like when you're running a series, almost like a showrunner. Like when I started They Stay, I thought it would be a trilogy, and then I very quickly was able to pivot that into a 5 book series because I had more ideas that I wanted to explore in that world, and I'm really glad that I did because like I learned so much writing those books. Um, I think it's good to have a general idea for like whether you want it to be a series or not, and kind of what structure you want that series to take. Like for Love Trials, I didn't have every single book of the Love Trials planned out when I started writing it. Even now, like I have a rough sketch and a rough vision, but it's all really going to depend on like how I'm feeling emotionally when I'm writing it and what I think is going to be most exciting, and like whether there are certain things I know I want to do in this series, but I have to decide whether I want to do them in book 4 or in book 3, or like how, and if I want to make them like long books, like if I want to do fewer longer books, or if I want to do like one idea that's exciting to me is doing like kind of shorter books because I'm structuring the series almost like a bunch of episodes of Criminal Minds. So every book focuses on a different serial killer, and then the team has to go and like solve that case every time, but then the characters grow and develop over each one. So that's part of the reason that I'm like treating books 2 and 3, because it's almost like a little bit of an experiment for me, doing like shorter books that are all focused on one case but have the character arcs like spread out over multiple. So like books 2 and 3, like my character arcs, like the character arc midpoint would be like kind of at the end of book 2, and then it would wrap up in book 3, and like kind of have these things spread out. But I also have to make sure that they have self-contained arcs in each of them, and like I'm trying to think of ways that I can like make the books like a little bit snappier with like how fast the mystery thriller plots are unfolding, but then also like do all the character stuff that I want to do. So I want to keep it like bingeable and exciting, and also like so that but that's kind of the extent of my vision. And I have plots for all the different, like I have a bunch of different ideas and a bunch of things I know I want to do, but not necessarily like a full outline of exactly how they're all going to happen. So I think it's generally a good idea to write like a book one with series potential, like if you want to have a series, or if you know that you want to write a trilogy, like I like it's very easy to expand that. Surprise, or I won't say very easy, but it's surprisingly possible to expand that into a longer series while you're already in the middle of it. So don't feel like you're boxing yourself in necessarily. Um, all right. Next question is, wow, there's so many good ones. I'm starting to lose my voice though, so I'm gonna have to be a little bit picky about the questions that I answer because I think I might just do like maybe two more and then hop off, because I need to be able to speak tomorrow. Let's see. Um, yeah, these are all really, really, really good questions. Um, oh, if this is about the print runs, yes, I totally hear you and totally agree, but I will be able to sell these. I'm going to sell them as a scratch and dent copy, so they're going to be like severely discounted copies, but they'll just like, have like a slight misprint or like a, slight issue with the edge printing or like a dented corner or things like that. So I'm still gonna be able to sell, like they're perfectly readable and like there's really no issue with them, but it's just that if somebody's paying full price for a book, I don't want to send them a book that has like a dented issue. Because then as like a reader, if I got that, then I would feel like ripped off by that. So I'm still gonna send them. Um, yeah, I would never throw books away like that. No, don't worry. I'm absolutely planning and hoping to be able to get these into the hands of readers, but this is, my first experience with all of this. All right, let's see. Do you have any tips or insights on how to write more interesting action and description when you lack spatial awareness? Scenes tend to come to me in dialogue only. This is a struggle, and I've struggled with this too before. This is something that a lot of the times will come in revision. Like, and this has been something that I've worked on is trying to activate the part of my brain that focuses on spatial awareness. Like I'm not good at this, and this is why like that beta reader that I mentioned and like having other beta readers pick apart the details can really help me because I can envision the feelings and emotions of a scene, but like exactly where they are and what they're doing sometimes doesn't necessarily come to me. So yeah, it's just kind of a skill that I've had to practice and really work on. I don't have a lot of tips and insights. It's just like focus. I'm trying to really focus, and that's something that I definitely dedicate a full editing pass to that and like when I'm revising. But I don't focus on that really early on in the process. Because that's just a lot of brain power. um let's see. Hmm. Yeah, thank you guys so much for so many great questions. Oh, this is a quick one. What website do you use for your website? I use Wix. I used to use Squarespace, but I've been using Wix and it's been awesome. I had Stuart Grant at Digital Authors Toolkit design my new website last summer, and he did an amazing job. And he prefers Wix. And I was pretty new to using Wix, but it's been great. And I've been able to manage my whole store and everything on there, and it's been awesome. Um, do you prefer a happy ending, a bittersweet one, or a grimdark ending, and why? I like my happy endings. I personally write commercial fiction. I write books. I listened to this podcast many, many years ago. I mean, not many, many, but like many years ago, that Jennifer Lynn Barnes did. And she was talking about the psychology of why people read and why people love reading. And she said that a lot of people read genre fiction because it, like, for the same reason that they eat a slice of cheesecake. Like, they are trying to like feel like have a pleasurable reading experience and a pleasurable feeling, and it's like our job, or like my job, I guess, as a genre fiction author, to give readers that feeling. So when I set out to write the love trials, I was really thinking about that, because like in They Stay, like I love those books. I love those books to death. But I really took the advice of like put your characters through the worst possible thing you can put them through to heart, and I just did it over. Like I pummeled those characters and They Stay for 5 books. And I think like from an like they're fun. I love them. They're horror books. Like, it would be boring if nothing bad ever happened to them. And it does have a happy ending. It's not a tragedy, or happy-ish, bittersweet ending. Um, but in Love Trials, I was like, is there a way that I can create a world in which people like would want to step into and like almost live there? Like it's like escapism, kind of like how fantasy is. Like you read fantasy because, or like, I don't know, people love ACOTAR because like they want to step in and live in the world. And I was like, what if I can create a world in which like people want to be in, like it's like a comforting thing, like almost like a comfort read. They want to step into the world and live there. And also be able to combine that like with my serial killer passion ideas. So that's kind of what I set out to do with that. And I was a little bit more focused on like trying to create a reader experience that would be like very, very pleasurable. And by doing that, I created an experience for me as a writer that was extremely pleasurable, because I was just obsessed with the book that I was writing. And that really worked. So I was thinking a lot about balancing like joy and happy endings with like the serial killer, dark, thrilling horror elements. And there are like this book gets dark, and like the characters go through some really, really tough things. But I do really like a happy ending. And I had readers come to me be like, and tell me after they read the Love Trials that they would not have rated the book as high as they did if it didn't have a happy ending, because it wouldn't have given them that like gooey feeling. Like they went through all of that tough stuff, but they still had a happy ending. So I'm personally a happy endings person, but I know that people will have a different opinion depending on what kind of books they like to write, and also which books they like to read. All right, so maybe I'll do one more question, just because like I can already feel like my voice is getting a little frayed. Um, let's see. Question. Mainly what kind of novel you love to write? I'm asking this because I want to know whether you write what you like or what your customers like. And last, do you love poetic books? I love what I write. Like, I wouldn't be able to write, and like, or like writing a book is hard, and writing a book is so fun. It takes so much love and effort to write a book that I can't write a book unless I'm completely obsessed with it. I have never been obsessed with a book the way that I'm obsessed with the Love Trials. And I think that because I love it so much and because I'm so obsessed with it, I think that's why like readers are also responding to that, because they can feel all the love that's gone into it. I have never been able to like look at something and be like, well, that's selling, and now I'm gonna write it. Like that's never been how I think, and never been what I've been able to do. It's just combining. What I've found interesting is like from a craft perspective, is like learning how to combine the things that like set my soul on fire, that like make me so obsessed with writing, make me feel like I'm 13 again and like fangirling over the Hunger Games, but like now I'm fangirling for something that I'm creating. How to combine that with like, like the things that I learned from a craft perspective, and like the things like psychologically that like I know people tend to enjoy, and like how can I combine all those things together to create something that I'm going to enjoy the most, because like, I am people, and understanding what psychologically like works for me is really my end goal. Like my end goal when writing is to write something that I'm going to be obsessed with and that I'm going to love, in the hopes that like other people are going to feel the love that I have for it and like also connect to it like I did. So yeah, I absolutely love what I write. And do I love poetic books? I don't read books of poetry. I've never been good at poetry, and I don't really read any of it. And I don't read a lot of like lyrically fit, like I read for story. I don't really read for prose. So give me a good story and I'll be all over it. Um, and maybe just one more question. Oh, this is a good one. How do you recommend new writers with big visions but lacking in skill due to increase in skill fast? Obviously, write more, but write what exactly? Like, how do I train my skills up? This is a really tough thing. Like, when I was talking about that book that I wrote in high school, and like how I just kept writing it over and over and over again, I think the reason why I struggled with it so much is because I had the vision. I knew what the vision was, but I didn't have the skills to enact the vision. And I kept trying to like shoot up toward that vision, but I just kept missing because like I didn't have the skills to actually bring it to life the way that I wanted to. So this is tricky, but I think that the best way to do this is like, yes, obviously write more, but write thoughtfully. Like the way to train your skills up is not just to write, but then to think critically about what you're doing and like how you're writing. So write a draft. And then if you're a pantser, like pants a draft and then go back and like do a reverse outline and then think critically about how your story is fitting together. Try to understand it in like an analytical way. Try to figure out and ask yourself like how you can upscale that and like how to make it better and like push yourself to like always be making things better, but like always be asking yourself like what you're doing and why, and try to understand why, and then always go through the exercises to like try to understand what you're doing and like how to improve it. So like when I'm writing scenes, or like I was just meant like talking about this in response to another question, how I don't really outline all of my scenes anymore, but I used to. And I used to have like full little arcs, like where I'd write out like this is the inciting incident of the scene, this is the climax, this is the resolution, this is the rising action, these are my reversals. And I'd force myself through that exercise. So now after years of doing that exercise, I don't have to necessarily do that exercise because I kind of have a sense for it. But then if I'm having a problem with a scene, I can go back and I can use that exercise, and it has become like a tool in my toolbox. So trying to like not just write aimlessly, like write and make sure that like you're moving forward and you're producing material, because unless like if you're not writing, then you're not going to be getting better at any of these things. But try to combine that with like analyzing what you've done and critical thinking about what you're doing is probably what I would recommend doing. Um yes, I am. I don't know if you can tell. I'm like I keep like trying to like rub my throat. I think I need to end this live stream. My face is like really red and hot, and I've been talking now for an hour and 15 minutes. I'm gonna lose my voice. Um, oh, because my father said to me, write what sells, and he said no one reads poetry in today's world, but I love poetry. Then write poetry. Write what you love. People do read poetry. It's not as commercial as genre fiction, but you should write what you love to write, and you will find a market for what you love to write. I didn't really necessarily think that there would be readers for like this passion project that I had that like combined like supernatural and saw and all these different things. But I'm finding readers and like there is an audience out there for what you love to write. And even if it's not a very big audience, you should write what sets your soul on fire, because writing and creating art is important. And art creation is not just for the sake of money. Like you don't create art just to make money. You create art to express yourself as a human being. And I think that is really, really important. And that in and of itself makes what you're doing important. But completely separately from that, there is also still an audience and readers who love poetry. And you should follow what you really love to do and what you really love to write. So, yes, going back to that, yes, I am losing my voice. One more question, and then I really have to go. If you have multiple stories and you're stuck on which one to start writing, any advice you can offer, pick the one that you're most excited about. If you could only pick one, which is the one that sets your soul on fire and makes you most excited? Um, yeah, people do love poetry. Don't listen to him, write your poetry. Thank you. Exactly. Let's expand it to 10 more questions. No, thank you for the suggestion. I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for coming to this live stream and for hanging out with me. I am so, so, so grateful for you being a part of this community. This is really fun. I should do this more because I really love just getting to engage with you authentically instead of just like me talking at my camera. This is really fun. Yeah, like and subscribe, and I will do this again soon. I hope you all have a fantastic week. And as always, happy writing.